just sort of like this, well, sort of kind of thing? Or is it now, does this water down mercy when I say that? And I want to say absolutely not. I want to say mercy is still real, absolutely necessary, and it's what lifts us out of the devastation.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it is renewing. It is reviving. It is refreshing. There's something really amazing about mercy, and in some ways, being hit hard with the devastation actually makes you realize how necessary mercy is. What's the place of mercy in the believer's life, and how does it keep from becoming just an enabler of poor decisions and bad behavior? This is Season 3, Episode 1 of Unhurried. I'm your host, Doug Kyle. I'm alongside of Ryan Viramontes here in the studio.
Hello.
Ryan, Season 3, can you believe it?
I can't. I was waking up this morning and I was like a little giddy. I was like, I can't believe we're back at it.
I mean, this is your brainchild. From a couple years back, you said we should do this, and I don't know that we ever thought ahead that we'd be in the third year of doing this.
Yeah, you didn't say no, so I was like,
I didn't say no. I like the idea.
Let's keep rolling with it.
Yeah, well, here we go. So anything new for Season 3? Any additions? I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that our backdrop is different.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We've got some new ideas kind of cooking, right now. And so, we'll get there eventually of like what it's going to officially look like and things like that. We've got some new changes coming to how we upload and things like that. So a little behind the scenes, but, still the same gang. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here we are. Here we are. Well, I do like this backdrop. We're exactly in the very same studio, the same room that we were in before, but you've kind of dressed it up a little bit. I like it. We've talked about probably going to incorporate a few more interviews this season, where we'll probably have 3 mics set up, and we'll have a discussion with we invite other guests to join us. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, we had so much fun last season with having guests on, and it kind of brings another perspective to the listener and stuff like that. And as we dive into the series that we're in, or what God has for us in His Word, I feel like it's going to be kind of cool to bring some more people along with us.
Yes, absolutely. It is. One thing we haven't changed about this studio, though, it's still freezing.
It is very cold.
It's like typical San Diego winter out there, where it's just a beautiful day. Anybody visiting from any other part of the country be going, "You're kidding me, right? This is so warm." Right. And in here, I feel like I need a coat on top of my sweater.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard people from San Diego say Dago?
Dago about San Diego, call it Dago? No.
Call it Dago?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe I'm onto something.
You're going to invent that?
I feel like, well, there's a few people that I know that born and raised here, and they call it Dago.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm going with it.
All right. If I'd like to hear from our listeners, let us know if any of you call it Dago or hear it called Dago. I kind of feel like, are you sure they're from here?
Maybe they're not.
Because I feel like San Francisco, I did a semester there when I was in college, lived there, and people outside of San Francisco call it Frisco.
Yes.
But if you're from there, you do not call it Frisco. It's like you're clearly not from here.
Yeah, well, it's like Cali, right? Like where like my cousins, that don't live in this country, that are from Mexico, they always say Cali, and I'm just like, it's California.
Nobody calls it Cali. So is Dago the same way? Nobody calls it Dago, or maybe it's a new thing that I'm just not.
I just Googled it right now, and it said San Diego is a variant term for Dago, normally referred to in the context of San Diego's inner city neighborhoods.
Oh, all right. There you go.
So,
well,
hey, there you go.
Maybe you are onto something.
Maybe I am.
All right. All right.
I'm from Dago.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any swag yet for this season either, Season 3. So
we'll
see if that became a big thing in Season 2. So I don't know if we'll see if that takes on a life of its own.
Sure.
It kind of did last time
Dago Doug.
Dago Doug. What? I don't know.
I don't know about that.
That'll have to grow on me.
I don't know about that.
I'm not sure. All right.
I'm sorry. Season 3 is now over.
All right. We could restart this, but we won't.
But we won't.
But we won't. No, we won't. A couple people, we started announcing season 3 at church, and a couple people asked me about it, going, "Oh, I didn't even know you guys had a podcast."
Yeah.
And in every case, I said the same thing. I go, "You should, if you want to start listening, go back and listen to season 2. Don't go back to season 1." Start listening to season 2. What's the big difference? Ryan became a big part of the conversation. So, I feel like season 2 was a big lift for us.
I don't know about that.
We elevated things.
That's really funny that you say that, because I literally say the complete opposite. I go, it's a great podcast until season 2.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a TV show, like when people, you tell somebody about it and you're like, season 3, it went a little off the rails, but it comes back in season 4. I feel like that's the podcast right now, where I always tell people, start with season 1.
No,
that's the best one.
I disagree.
Skip season 2 and come back in season 4 when I'm replaced.
Nope, not gonna happen. All right, well, here we go. We're off.
We're off.
I thought, since it's our first episode of the new season, that I would just kind of reiterate what we're trying to do, what Unhurried is all about. And here's kind of the way I would describe it. Unhurried is a conversational space to slow down and go deeper. It's built upon recent sermons that I give here at Green Valley Church, and it's creating just a room for reflection, for questions, for honest dialogue. Rather than rushing on the next thing, which is so easy in our culture to do, we are slowing down and listening, lingering, engaging with Scripture, with faith, with everyday life, and doing it at a kind of a more thoughtful pace.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like season 2, is because the episodes got longer. The first ones, I think we were just trying to condense too much, even though it's called Unhurried. And I like just the thoughtful pace that we do this at. Yeah. What would you say if someone asked you what Unhurried is, and they have no idea?
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
I usually say the same, around the same thing. I just say I always kind of say that, it ties in with our sermon series, but you can also just listen to it independently, because you go through what you're, what's on your heart and what the series that you're, giving the messages from. But it's kind of meant to be taken at a slower pace, just to sit down, have a conversation, share things that are going on in our lives, and what, God is doing in our church, and how His Word speaks to us, today.
Yeah. I think a cup of coffee or a cup of tea is a good metaphor for it, because it's meant to just sit down and slow down and kind of discuss these things together, and having you a part of it has made it way more conversational. I also like what you said about it being a standalone. You don't have to hear the message. Right. They're designed to be able to be listened to with or without the message. Yes. But if you do hear the message, this is going to take it deeper for you. Some of the stuff that we don't have a chance to cover on Sunday mornings, or even in reflection, I would like to have gone a little bit deeper into this.
Right.
That's what we do here.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, here at the beginning of season 3, we're going to be spending the first several weeks talking about making room for renewal. And this is the series that we're also discussing at church, making room for renewal. And when I was first brainstorming about this series for the new year, I was first thinking about it being more like making room for revival. Yes. It was more about revival than renewal, and I still think it really has that. Our discussion is going to have that tone to it. This is really something that can create real revival within us. Individually and corporately, but I think renewal actually broadens it a little bit, to this kind of more holistic way of thinking about it, all of life. So anyway, making room for renewal is what we're talking about, and the anchor for it is going to be Psalm 51, which is actually a pretty intense psalm. Yeah, and we're going to spend several weeks just looking at it, kind of going through it, pretty deliberately. Psalm 51 opens with these words, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions." So it starts with this quest for mercy, this pleading with God for his mercy and his compassion, his love to blot out transgression, that is, to forgive sin. And the question that it kind of poses for us on our conversation today is, what's the place of mercy in the believer's life, and how does it keep from becoming just an enabler for poor decisions, bad behavior? If we know God's going to be merciful, if we know that's his character, if we know he's going to be forgiving and gracious, by asking by that, does that just kind of put us in a place where we go, well, great, I can kind of live the way I want. God's always going to be merciful.
Yeah.
Put that differently, how do we receive God's mercy without turning into permission for careless choices or repeated sin? And speaking of poor decisions, that leads right into what Psalm 51 is all about. If you look at the subtitle or the superscription, this little phrase that comes before a lot of the Psalms, it tells us that this psalm was the result of really set of bad decisions by King David in the Old Testament. So these superscriptions are really interesting. They're a lot of the Psalms have them. And unlike maybe other parts of your Bible where you'll see a chapter heading and then kind of a description of what's coming, those are put there by the translators and are very recent. But these superscriptions, these subtitles in the Psalms, go all the way back to the when these Psalms were first written, or at least when they were first put together for Israel to use in their worship. So they're ancient. They have been connected to these Psalms from really the very beginning. And this one says, "For the director of music, a psalm of David, when the prophet Nathan came to him after David had committed adultery with Bathsheba." So it tells us that the context of this was this really horrific sin, set of sins really by David, and this horrible failure on his part, scandalous, notorious, infamous in the Bible. Probably, if people know very much about the Bible, and it's some of it's more, I don't want to say scandalizing or is that the right word? Scandalizing? I'm not even sure. But
I always go to you with those questions.
Scintillating? I don't know.
If you say it, then it's right.
I'm not sure on that one, but you know what I'm saying.
Totally.
The more these notorious sins in the Bible, this is the one that people would know about, where David saw Bathsheba, glanced upon her. She was bathing on a rooftop, which we don't do that anymore, do we? I don't know that anybody has their bathtub on their
I don't think so.
on their roof, but apparently back then that was a deal, that led to this bad decision to sleep with her and then ultimately conspire to kill her husband. But these superscriptions, these subtitles in the Psalms, tell us a number of things. Sometimes they tell us the author. Sometimes they tell them the purpose of the psalm. Sometimes they tell us the context. Sometimes it even gives us the tune, which I think you as a musician would find interesting. It'll say this was meant to be sung to the tune of the lilies or something like that. Right. So they're meant to tell us something about the tune, and it reminds us that these are musical pieces. These originally weren't just poems; they were musical pieces, lyrics to songs that Israel sang. So in this case, this one gives us 3 out of 4 of those things. It tells us the author is David. It tells us the purpose, that it says for the director of music, so it's meant to be sung by the worshiping community of Israel, and it tells us the context. It was written after David was confronted and convicted of his horrific sin, which to me is crazy. And we talked a little bit about this Sunday, but it's crazy. This was a worship song, because David is just confessing this deep, dark failure on his part and pleading with God in the most, private and intimate way. Yeah. And now all Israel is singing this song. Yes. Which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also very relatable, and David, is one of those, people in the Bible for us that we can relate to,
Yes.
He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's done great things, and he's also done not so great things.
Yeah.
But he's been honest about it, and I think that's how we should live our life. It's that we should be honest with the things that are keeping us from a deeper relationship with God. And that's kind of what he says later on in the Psalm too, where he, I think you'll probably get into it, but where he says, really, I've been like a sinner since my mom conceived me, or something like, where you're like, okay, that might be a little dramatic, but we can all relate to it, where we've done bad things as children. We've done bad things as adults. You know what I mean? It's like we can relate to it. Yeah.
The Bible calls him a man after God's own heart.
Yes,
and he even here he is, by being so raw and real and honest and vulnerable and candid about his failure.
Yeah.
And so somehow along the way, David composed this song. He then must have sung it for someone,
sure,
or maybe a group of people, and people loved it. They connected with it in a way that it got elevated to a worship song for the whole community.
Yeah,
and suddenly everybody's singing this, and they're singing it because David's words reflect something that's real and true for everyone.
Right.
We all need these times of confession and pleading for God with mercy. So I kind of imagined what it would be like in the message on Sunday, and you were part of the story. I said, imagine, isn't this crazy that this is David's private sin, and yet it became a worship song and now is in the book, in the book of Psalms for all generations of believers to use this in their own devotions as well. So isn't that crazy? Can you imagine if someone came up to me and they said, I've had a horrible week. I committed this horrible, horrible sin. They confide in me. And I said, wow, thanks for sharing that with me. I'm going to tell Ryan and have him put a song together, and we'll all sing.
Hold on, let me grab my guitar real quick.
Yeah, we'll all sing about that this Sunday. And it's like, it's just crazy. And then I assured everyone I would never do that.
Right.
No one's ever going to talk to me again.
Nobody.
Wait a second.
You're like, why is everybody running away from me in the lobby today?
Exactly. So hopefully they heard that part too. But that's sort of what happened here, is that they turned David's private confession into this public expression.
Yes.
Of their own worship as well. So let me give you just a quick flyover of what verses 1 through 6, because that's really what we covered on Sunday, and it can be summarized really as simply as this: sin breaks us more deeply than we realize, and mercy heals us more fully than we expect. And in the message, I wanted us to, the first part of the message kind of is taking us deep, into just how horrific sin is.
Yeah.
That it breaks us, in that it devastates others and it devastates us. More than that, it separates us from God, and then it runs deeper than we think. It's way more pervasive than we ever realized. And we kind of live with that for the first half of the message. And when I was talking to Cindy about this a little bit and kind of the plan, it's like, can you imagine if at that point, okay, God's best to you, see you guys later, we'd all be wallowing in despair. Sin is way worse than we usually think about it.
Right.
And this psalm brings that out. It's devastating to others. It's devastating to us. It separates us from God, and is way more just a part of our human fabric than we ever realized. But the second part of the message, and the second part of, looking at these first 6 verses, reminds us that mercy renews us more fully than we think. And it's needed by every one of us. That's the whole point why what David prayed becomes this song that everybody sings, because we all need it. It flows from God's heart. It's not, it's not something that just David needed and kind of hoped against hope that God would do. It's really what God promises to do for us.
Yes.
It's what he longs to do, and it restores us. It's actually this transformative element in our lives why mercy can become this rich and wonderful restoring thing in our lives.
Yeah, very much so, And I also think too that, not all the time, do we have the opportunity to right our wrongs, but that's something that I've really learned, as an adult, that sometimes you do have that opportunity to, and you should take it, to rewrite those wrongs. Sometimes somebody wrongs us and we kind of go, okay, I don't want them in my life anymore or something like that. But then, sometimes they come back in and you just go like, yeah, okay, I can show you grace and give you mercy and all the things. 'Cause that's what, that's what Jesus gave us. That's what God gave us. And so we can also, share that too,
It's funny that you say that, because I kind of had to really wrestle with that Sunday afternoon after my message.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason is because, here's this message that really underlines and underscores and amplifies God's mercy in a really a powerful way. And we were all kind of thinking about that together on Sunday morning. And then Sunday afternoon, I heard about this, the confession of an affair of this prominent Christian author. And it rocked me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had actually, he'd kind of, confessed it, I guess, earlier in the week, but for some reason I hadn't heard about it. And maybe that's good, because I don't know if it would have flavored the way I thought about the message that morning. But I was able to just look at God's word independent from that, that situation being in my mind. But then I heard about it that afternoon, and man, it really bothered me, because this is a guy that I've loved his writing, and I have quoted, and not C.S. Lewis, don't worry, C.S. Lewis is with the Lord in heaven, so it wasn't him, but it was just someone that I kind of look up to, and I I've never met him or anything, but I thought it just bothered me so much, that the devastation of sin. And I guess I was the part of the message and the part of the psalm that reminds us of how devastating sin is really hit me in a new way, because I was devastated with just the news that apparently is, pretty public now. Right. And
well, you hear things from like that happen in churches and, with leadership in churches and stuff. And then, there'll be like discussions if the worship team or somebody at the church like wrote a song, and then people, will say like, oh, well, we shouldn't sing that song because of what's going on in that church. And it's like, that's kind of part of like where the discernment comes into play. 'Cause then you have to go like, well, the song's not really about them anyway.
Yeah.
We're not singing to the people in that church. We're not singing to the leadership of that church. We're singing to God,
and we're not celebrating the author.
Right. We're not celebrating the author. We're celebrating what he's talking about and how God can relate to us in our life, so
the truth of it,
the truth of it. But it does, it does, but it does make you feel kind of icky,
Yeah. It just bothered me because of the times I've heard about that many times over the years, those kinds of things. And it always, it always hits me in a sobering way.
Sure.
But then I thought about it. I go, that's just me as a someone who knows this person publicly and through his writing. But can you imagine? The devastation was just so much more intense for those who were close to the situation.
Oh, for sure.
And it just reminded me of that what we said, what the Psalm says, I guess, is that sin is devastating. It really is way more serious than we think.
Yeah.
And it made me, just go, so mercy, does that just mean, we, when we're on the flip, when we need mercy, I feel like this psalm just speaks loudly, clear to us. Yes. But when we need to show mercy, it becomes tricky, because you're starting to say, well, I don't want it to just be this, easy thing. Sure. Like, well, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
Forgive and forget. Let's all move on.
Yeah.
Because mercy is not this easy, everything's okay, let's just, wipe out everything, clean slate. And the honest thing that the candid thing that we need to say about Psalm 51 that probably isn't said enough is that David's life never truly recovered from the consequences of his sins. I'm told that there's a movie out about King David right now that I haven't seen, but apparently someone told me that it ends before his sin with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
That, it's like, it's just kind of this, upward, positive Bible hero kind of presentation. Because if you look at David's life after this affair, from a human level and from the devastating consequences of it, those things followed him the rest of his life. He was restored with God, praise God, and his relationship with God was renewed, but the consequences were, the ripple effect still, stayed there for the rest of his life. And so mercy doesn't just mean there's no devastation anymore.
Right. Well, that's the part that I think always just sucks about when you let sin get a foothold in your life, is that you don't always have the opportunity to come back around and fix it. Or if you do fix it, and forgiveness and mercy and grace are all those things, right? It always does stay with you. You're always kind of known as you're the guy that did the such and such thing. You know what I mean? Or just whatever happens, it's like something happens and you're like, you can't ever really get rid of it sometimes,
And in God's goodness and in God's grace, sometimes he even, is able to resolve the consequences, and time does heal. So I don't want people to feel defeated with that. But I don't want people to be overly optimistic that, just because I pray Psalm 51, it's, clean slate.
Yeah.
And so mercy doesn't necessarily wipe out all the human consequences. Right. But so what's the point of mercy then? Yeah. Is mercy just sort of like this, sort of kind of thing? Does this water down mercy when I say that? And I want to say absolutely not. I want to say mercy is still real, absolutely necessary, and it's what lifts us out of the devastation. It's what it is renewing. It is reviving. It is refreshing. There's something really amazing about mercy, and in some ways, being hit hard with the devastation actually makes you realize how necessary mercy is. So I want to say a few more things about Psalm 51 that we didn't get to talk about on Sunday. Psalm 51 is primarily for us when we need mercy, not focused on showing mercy. That's, the Bible deals with that quite a bit, but this isn't really the primary focus of it. For how do we show mercy to others, is how do we get mercy for ourselves, and how do we restore our relationship with God when we failed. And so we need to work through it. And as we work through it, and we're doing some right now, looking at verses 1 through 6. We'll continue to do so with the weeks to come in this podcast as we walk our way through this psalm. We need to recognize the devastation that is there, the seriousness of it, and how pervasive it is. I think realizing how serious sin is makes our plead for mercy more real.
No, for sure. Yeah. Well, once you're able to, lay things down at the altar, and realize that you made mistakes, I think that's when mercy really starts to show, and God can show that in our life, that's really when the overflow of grace and mercy, comes on our life there.
I feel like mercy is suddenly in all capital letters then.
Suddenly
mercy isn't just a throwaway word. It becomes like this rich, meaningful thing that God gives us mercy when we confront the seriousness of our failures. Mercy actually confronts sin rather than excusing it. And so we see this in Psalm 51. We see that mercy actually moves us toward God, not away from Him. And it moves us away from sin rather than towards it.
Yes.
So mercy really does have this transforming effect. Mercy allows us to own our sin, which Psalm 51 shows us. David owns it, says this is on me completely. He doesn't try to excuse it or justify it or rationalize it. He owns it. And it agrees with God of knowing that God is right. Did you know that the word confession in the original language in Greek actually means just to agree?
Really?
Yeah. To confess means to agree.
Yeah.
And it means to agree with God.
Yeah.
So when we confess, we're agreeing that God's got it right and we had it wrong.
Right.
It can be both positive and negative. You sometimes we talk about like we confess that Jesus is Lord. I'm agreeing with God. That's not like saying anything's wrong. It's saying something's right. But sometimes we confess our sins. That means again, I'm agreeing with God.
Right.
God, you're right.
I confess with what you're saying right now.
Yeah, I confess right back. we agree. Yeah, that's right. So it's mercy is us agreeing with God and confessing that God is right. And mercy takes us right to the core of the real problem. And that's why this psalm talks about how, it's against God and God alone. Well, obviously it wasn't. It was there's some real people that were hurt in the wake of David's sin. But it takes us to the core, which is against God, and it transforms us at the core, which is our hearts. Once we know it, that is, once we work through it for ourselves, then we can start to work through showing it to other people. And I use the phrase work through intentionally. It's not easy to show,
No.
It's not like, oh, okay, that's an easy thing to show mercy. We have to work through it with others too. And it's often a process, especially depending on how close the devastation was to us.
For sure.
But Psalm 51 helps us with that too. Because mercy, when we receive mercy, it sort of humbles us and it softens us towards others. It allows us to also leave God as the judge. When you realize, God, this is against you, it helps us to realize, ultimately, even though I felt like the sin was against me, it was against you. So I think about this author that I don't know. He didn't do this against me.
Right.
I'm feeling it a little bit, and ultimately, even the people in his life weren't the ultimate result of his sin. The result of his sin was against God. And so I can leave it with God and say, God, you're going to deal with that person in your mercy and your grace and your justice, all of those ways. And then it allows us to leave God as the teacher. And verse 6 talks about how God teaches us in the process. So now I think Psalm 51, even though it's intended for ourselves to receive God's mercy, it actually puts us in a place where we're better prepared to show mercy to others.
Yes. Well, and there was something that, not to go into too many things, but there, have been issues that have happened in, Mandy and I's life and things and people involved in those things. And, like you were saying, like the initial shock of everything, you just go like, whoa, like that's, you kind of get like thrown back almost,
Yeah.
And then after some time in reflection and prayer, I told Mandy, I was like, the only thing that I can do right now in my current life, the only thing that I have that is abundant is grace and mercy. That's all I have. I don't have any time. The kids have monopolized all my time.
Yeah.
Like I don't, like I'm busy at the church, like, which is good. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's like, I don't have anything else. I don't have extra, financial things to give, or I don't have any other way of, helping this person right along the journey. The only thing I do have that is overflowing in my life is grace and mercy. And so that's the only thing I can continue to show them is that I am here because of the mercy of God, and I can show you that, and then that's it.
I love that. Yeah.
It's like sometimes when you, like you were saying, like when you have experienced it in your own life, that's when you're able to then show it to someone else.
Yes.
That true mercy from God, and that grace.
So even though it's easy for us to think that showing other people mercy is cheap grace and
right.
an easy out and kind of letting them off the hook, permission for poor behavior. When you look more closely, mercy deals honestly with sin.
Yeah.
It transforms us and even then equips us, as you're saying, to show that to other people as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I want to continue this season to have listener questions at the end. So I want to invite our listeners to, you can either post a comment on the YouTube if that's how you're watching, or if you're listening, you can send a question to unhurriedpodcast@gmail.com. Either way, we'll take a look at your question, do our best to incorporate it into our discussion. And I actually got a question this week. Someone texted me and they said after the message, and they said this on Unhurried this week. Any chance you could touch on verses 5 and 6? Specifically, I'm curious about the phrase, "You desire faithfulness even in the womb, and you taught me wisdom in the secret place." Thank you. All right, and I think that's a great question, and we covered some of that in the message, and we've even addressed a little bit of it already in this podcast, but this is the place to go into a deeper dive, so let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's look at verses 5 and 6, because this listener was asking about that. It says, verse 5 says, "Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me." You mentioned that earlier, that verse, and David is kind of admitting that sin isn't. He's saying this isn't just something that was a weak moment. That he just usually I'm pretty good, but this was I was really drained that week and made some bad decisions. He's saying this has been with me since I was born, from my earliest days, even before I was born. And he's saying something from a personal experience, like he goes, I realize I've always had this sin nature all my life, but he's also telling us something theologically, and that is that sin is something we're born into, we're born with. Theologians call it original sin. It goes back to our first human parents, and it's part of what it means to be human, is that we have this broken sin nature. And so that's what he's saying. In the message, I phrased it this way. I said sin runs deeper than we think. But this listener asked specifically about verse 6, and I'm glad that she did, because it says, "Yet you desired faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in the secret place." And so the womb and the secret place are parallel ideas here. Desiring faithfulness and teaching wisdom, also parallel ideas. The way I talked about this in the message, is God allows mercy to restore the image of God in us, the image of God that was planted in us when we were being formed in the womb. So not only are we, it's true to say that we are sinners from birth, it's also true to say that we were meant for something more from birth, that we were designed by God in His image. That's been marred but not lost.
Right.
We still have it, and mercy is part of the way that God restores that. When we recognize our failures, mercy then brings us back to God's original design and intention, which was faithfulness from the womb, wisdom from the secret place. What David is doing in this verse, and what this verse does for us, is it anticipates what God wants to do in our lives as we grow. And it also points out that work is done in secret rather than out in the open. In other words, it starts inside in our hearts, internally, rather than just fixes on the outside.
Right.
It really is an internal work on the inside. You can summarize it this way. Verse 5 tells us how far the problem goes. Well, verse 6 tells us how far God's mercy can go in our lives as well. So it's really great to see them together, and I'm glad the listener asked about that, because when you see them together, we've seen them by themselves, you only get half the story.
Yes.
You see them together, you get the big picture of what God wants to do with us.
We were watching a movie over Christmas break, and my my son, he I don't really like. Do you like scary movies?
No,
I don't either.
No, do not.
Okay.
Especially scary clowns.
Oh, really? You're out.
I'm out when the scary clowns show up.
No. So I can't really do scary movies either. And so we were watching, and it wasn't, it was kid friendly, but but he just didn't, he was like, I don't like this. This is not for me, So he left like halfway during the movie, and Mandy's like, she's like, go get him and bring him back. And I was like, well, he doesn't want to watch it, and she's like, well, he has to know how it ends, because if he thinks this the way that at the part that he left, he's not going to see that it comes around.
Yeah.
At the end, like he's just gonna, in his mind, he's only gonna think that it's only this worse, and so we brought him back in and stuff, and so he got to kind of see it kind of full circle, kind of a thing, but it's so true. It's like if you only read verse 5, you think, I'm the problem, which we are, but but you don't see the extending of God's mercy, towards us.
Yes.
You don't see that at all if you just stop right there. So
if all you have is verse 5, you're going to be overly pessimistic and devastated and defeated. And if all you see is verse 6, you're going to be overly optimistic and like hopeful. And the two together become this really balanced, helpful way to understand the human condition.
Yes, for sure.
Original sin, but made in the image of God, created for Him.
Right.
Both are true.
Yes, both are true.
Yeah.
Yep, very much so.
Yeah. We'll talk more about scary movies along the way.
Yeah.
Like if it's a cozy scary movie, I'm okay with
a cozy scary movie.
Cozy is like Dago, I got a new term for you. Cozy is like a cozy murder mystery or a cozy.
Okay.
It's like it's not really very scary.
Right,
it's meant to be like more like
suspenseful.
Hallmark level.
Okay.
It's like a Hallmark.
Like Lion King?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay.
Not really that scary, Just enough to almost be comical.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about all I can handle.
Disney scary. Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, exactly. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
The ride, that's about as scary as I want to be.
Yeah. Well, I was telling a story to Remy that I was saying that the first time I went on Indiana Jones at Disneyland, I closed my eyes for the whole ride, because I was so scared of everything.
Yeah.
It was like all like.
How old were you?
I was probably around his age, probably 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And because it was just so jarring. I had never seen anything like that before, and so I told him, I was like, it just happens. Like, it's okay to walk away. Like, you don't have to, be in a place that if you don't like it, just walk away. Like, but
except for you're on the ride, then all you can do is close your eyes.
Then all you got to do is close your eyes. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
But I told him, I was like, but you have to kind of, try and see how it ends, because it does come back around, so.
Did you, do you remember the part where the snake is coming in?
Yes.
Or your eyes are closed for that?
Well, when I first,
but now I can
do it
now.
The
snake is coming down. So my mom hates snakes.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago, decades ago, she was on Indiana Jones, and the ride got stuck.
No.
And it stopped while the snake is coming down right on her. And she was just like, she's never been on it again. That was that was
You're done.
Scarred her for life.
You're done.
Yeah, that's like the worst part. For the ride to stop.
Yeah. I used to love roller coasters, and I just can't do it anymore. I can't,
Yeah.
I'm too soft in my old age.
All right. Well, I have mercy for you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right. Well, hope this has been an encouragement to you to think a little bit more deeply about mercy, how transformative it is, how it doesn't actually let us off the hook, but actually is the power for renewal when we honestly understand what it's all about. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you,
part
Doug.
of this. Thank you to our enthusiastic viewers and listeners. You're with us for season 3. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Until next time, this has been Unhurried with me, your host, Doug Kyle. I look forward to talking soon.